this is when I asked the air hostess, have you got anything on board that I can help in resuscitation?
What did she say?
And she was so surprised. She was like, this is a flight, and we don't have anything at all. We might have paracetamol, but nothing at all.
I mean, that must have been some moment. How did you feel?
That was very, very scary. We are used to these kind of situations, but not the other things which comes with this particular scenario that I had. So I said, let's get oxygen in. They said, yes, we have the oxygen cylinder, and then they got the oxygen cylinders on.
All this time, were you doing like chest compressions and giving breath to this patient all this time while you were asking for more equipment, the equipment that you're used to having?
They got me a kit. Now, the kit was not what I was expecting. The kit was actually quite advanced medications which we use for life support, which was quite helpful. But at the same time, what I lacked was something monitoring for the patient. So I then had to think about alternative and improvise, and I had lots of passengers come to help me out with this. So Guy came and gave his watch, which we connected to the laptop, which had the pulse and the rhythm.
So was his heart working by this point then?
Yeah, so it was weekly working at that time.
So wait a minute, that means that your resuscitation, your chest compressions had worked and restarted his heart weekly,
Yes.
but it was working, and it was only a smartwatch from a passenger that made you aware. That's incredible.
And we had another passenger who gave us this pulse oximeter, which is to check the oxygen level in the blood. So that was when I printed a blood sugar checking for this gentleman. So I had the who came in and gave me the due computer, which is to check the blood sugar levels.
So basically your passengers made a dream team.
Yes, so the captain said my team will completely assist you to not only necessary safe.
How was the patient at this point?
But he was not just going at that time, so his was blood pressure was not he was breathing on his own. So he was
So at this point, you knew his heart was working, but it was working really weakly. You couldn't even
Yes.
record a blood pressure, but he was breathing. What happens next?
So we checked his blood sugar level. Blood sugar level was very low. So I had to give him dextrose.
That's like a
So-
sugar
so
solution, right?
That's right. And I had an air hostess who was actually counting every single drop. Working like a nurse in the hospital who can actually do everything, including monitoring and checking the observation. I'd drawn up a chart, so you have your pulse, blood pressure, saturation, and your neurological status. So
You'd made yourself a mini hospital up in the air.
yeah.
My goodness, and you'd managed to train air hostesses into becoming nurses all in that time.
Yes.
How long had this patient been on the floor by now?
By now, it was about 45 minutes into the first episode that he had, and he started slowly coming around. His blood pressure picked up. Slowly started getting I was so happy that he was actually coming around, and then he gave me the history saying that he has had no medical problems in the past. He had been to his GP 3 months back for a regular check, and he was cleared.
How are you feeling at this point?
Well, I was pretty happy at this time. And then suddenly, while he was speaking to me, he slumped completely. He stopped breathing. There was no pulse, no blood pressure. They had the medical kit. They had another box with the AED, the automated external defibrillator. So it is very easy. It will talk you through the things. You put a pad on the top of the chest, and that will deliver a shock to restart the heart. This was the time where I thought I actually lost them. We bumped up the oxygen to 100%.
You just tried everything at this point. You just gave everything that you could.
So this was a time when actually Mum looked at me, and I just said to her that I might not be able to save him, and this was very hard because a lot of passengers who were in the back of the flight couldn't see what's happening, and everybody was very tearful, very upset, very emotional at that time. And Mum said, do your best, save him. And
It must have felt
So-
also like a lot of pressure for you to have all those passengers and everything was riding on you.
I was completely at the mercy of nature, of saying, do you so this was the time the flight was somewhere in the Middle East, and we had a discussion with the captain and decided that we were going to divert this flight to the nearest airbase, where then while they were speaking about this, we started getting a little bit of pulse back, blood pressure back from him, and he started showing signs of response. Now, I didn't know how long the response would be and how strong the response would be.
You'd managed to get him back, but you didn't know how long for.
Yes, so by this time, it was probably an hour or so with no blood pressure at all. So this was quite a scary thing for us, and it's been about 4.5 hours by this time that he's on the floor. So we made a decision that we're going to go to Mumbai, and we did an emergency landing in Mumbai. And thankfully, everything went according to the plan, and I could hand him over to the emergency team.
What was happening with him at this point?
By this time, he was quite well. He was thinking that he could catch his connecting flight, because he kept on saying, I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine, I've recovered from it, and I'm absolutely fine.
Did he know what had happened? Did he realise he'd collapsed twice and his heart had stopped working twice?
I had to go and actually speak to him and say, look, for the last 5 hours, you've been barely awake and able to have a conversation with us, and do you recollect what's happened? And he was like barely able to recollect what things happened with him. And he agreed that he would go to the hospital and get checked out. I was very thankful that we could bring him back to us. The captain actually announced on the flight that there was going to be
And actually, there's just one more bit of that, because later Dr. Bamalik, he told just how proud his mum was to see him in action that day, and also how proud she was that all those